Waits trying to get up there. Gray picking it up in midfield. And a good one. It's there! What an incredible goal! What an incredibly judged goal by Eddie Gray! Gray still up there. Eddie Gray. Oh, good footwork by Gray. Still going. Oh, what a lovely goal! What a masterly goal by Eddie Gray!
Hello and welcome to a special edition of the official EFL Podcast. With it being the week of Leeds United's centenary year, I'm joined by the one and only Leeds United legend, Eddie Gray. Eddie, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming
Afternoon.
on. Voted the third best player ever for the club. Greatest living player for the club currently as well. What does it mean to you, Leeds itself, Leeds United? What does the club mean to you?
Well, it means everything, really. You know, from the point of view, you know, it's been all my working life, and I feel the Leeds have been good to me. The club have been good for me. But when I was growing up in Glasgow, and a scout called John Barr asked my dad if I would go down to have a look at it, to tell you the truth, I'd never heard of him. Because when I was growing up in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s, the clubs were Manchester United, Busby Babes, the great Wolverhampton Wanderers side, and you know, obviously the Tottenham Hotspur side of the 60s, the early 60s, the double winning side. And
You've not heard of Bobby Collins?
Oh yeah, I heard of Bobby Collins, but when I heard of Bobby Collins was an Everton player, Celtic and Everton player. I mean, Bobby was a big hero of mine. I used to watch Bobby nearly every week playing for Celtic. Disappointed when he went to Everton, and I got to play with Bobby, know a lot, because Bobby was coming to the end of his career then. But you know, like, I never knew, you know, like, only knew Bobby through Celtic and basically Everton, you know, before I came to Leeds United. And Bobby just came to the club really when I, you know, first come down in 1962. I just come down for a week, actually, a weekend. No, I didn't have any intention of signing for them. To tell you, you know, that's been honest about it. You know, my heart was set in going to Celtic. I used to train at the park every week. I was a big Celtic fan. But as soon as I got down to Leeds and met the manager, Don Revie, there was only one club I wanted to join, and that was Leeds United. So that was in 62, and I joined the club in 63, officially when I was 15. You know, so, and been here ever since.
You've been here since, certainly have. Lived in Yorkshire all that time as well. Many ups and downs in that history, of course, but how good is it to see where the club is seemingly going now after some tough years?
Well, hopefully, you know, back to the Premier League. But there's no guarantees. As you know, the Championship's a tough division. You know, I thought we were going to do it last season, and the expectation level's very high this season again. But, you know, they've got to keep working hard, and, you know, no guaranteed points wherever you go in this league. It's going to be tough. There's a lot of teams that have not started too well, and you'd expect them to make a little run. But we've started the season well, playing great stuff, as you know. But the thing about it is, you know, like, you've got to win matches. You know, the last couple of matches, you know, a little bit disappointing, away from home especially. You know, we're expected to win games and we never did it. So that was a little bit disappointing, but I'm sure in the centenary game, you know, against Birmingham, the team will bounce back and pick the 3 points up.
Just take us back now to you, though, the very start of your life in football. You mentioned Bobby Collins there as one of your inspirations, but who was it that really did inspire you to be a footballer growing up?
Oh, my dad. No doubt about that. My dad took me to watch the Celtic everywhere. And I had a favourite player at Celtic Park. He was called Willie Fernley. Willie played for Scotland, a great Celtic player. Played with Bobby. I used to love watching him play, but my dad was a big Celtic fan. And we used to go and watch the Celtic, which was great. But actually, when you were that age, you know, when I was, you know, I started playing football when I was a very young age. You know, when I got into the school team, even when I first played for the Glasgow schoolboys, you don't think about becoming a pro. I never thought about I'd become a professional footballer, because they always seemed to be way up there, you know. And I was at school, I played with the Glasgow schoolboys, and then scouts started knocking at the door, and I get invited to go and train at Celtic Park, which I did. I used to train there, and I'd been to a few clubs, a few of the bigger clubs in the country. But even then, I was just interested in playing at Celtic, and until I came to Leeds, the first time in '62. And when I first come down, it was Christmas '62, and it was traditionally at Christmas, young boys come down for trials at football clubs. But when I come down, Don took me training with the first team, even though I was only 14 at the time. And I trained with him, and big Jack Charlton booted me up in the air and went on and buy him. That didn't put me off. And talking about players like that, Jack, and who I got to play with for 10 years, and Bobby Collins, all the great players I played with at Leeds, and I played with many great players, I don't think there's been a more important player that walked through the gates than Bobby Collins. I think Bobby taught them all what winning was all about. He was a great footballer. He was as hard as nails, 5'3", to a size 4 in a boot. Bobby was some player. A great influence on everybody that played for the football club. And obviously, Don signed him from Everton, and probably, he made a couple of great signings over the years, Don. A lot of players, as you know, came through the ranks. He signed Johnny Giles from Manchester United, and Alan Clark and Mick Jones. But I don't think there was anybody more important than Bobby to get the ball rolling.
Similar to like maybe Gordon Strachan was in the Howard Wilkinson sort of era, that sort of.
Yeah, similar, but even more so, I would say. Because when Gordon was a great player and a similar type of character, but when Bobby came to Leeds had never won anything. They weren't the power in the land that they became. And they were in the old second division, and Bobby, it was the same for Gordon though when Howard came, but obviously, Gordon had a great influence in the team he played with, but I think Bobby had an influence in the whole club and the culture of the club as it grew up, and moved on.
For those who don't know, who aren't Leeds fans, can you describe Eddie Gray, the footballer? If you look on YouTube, some of the goals you've scored,
yeah.
I don't want to be seen to be kissing up a little bit, but it's one of the goals he scored. Lionel Messi might score a goal like that, for example.
I'll sum it up for you in a couple of words. I was never an outside left in my life. I'd never played outside left till I came to Leeds. And even the first game, even my debut, I played in the midfield. I scored against Sheffield Wednesday when I was 17, my debut. I was never a winger, I was always a midfield player. I played for the Glasgow Schoolboys, number 6, Scottish Schoolboys, number 6. Came here, played midfield to start my career here. And Don just came to me one day, and he was talking to me, he sat me down, he says, he went through a lot of the players that were at the football club, and he had Bobby, but Bobby was coming to the end of his career. He had Johnny Giles and Billy Bremner playing midfield, and he just says to me, would you mind having a go outside left? I think it'd be quite easy for you, because you're quick and you could get by people. So that's why I became an outside left. But for all my career, I was a frustrated midfield player.
Well, you didn't do too bad in that position, though, did you? In the 60s, the 70s and the 80s, it was a different game, of course. Awful lot of fouls, especially in that Leeds team. But would you have been a greater player in the modern era, do you think, looking back now?
Well, you can never tell. Things move on, in life, But the pitches weren't that good. You were allowed to tackle people from behind then, which a lot of them did. It's funny enough, our club had a reputation, and everybody knows the Dirty Leeds tag. If you remember the team you played against, people that would like to put it around,
I was watching some of the matches with Derby County and
yeah,
saw some of the fouls, and it seems to be pretty 50-50 in some
Yeah,
ways.
of course they were, that was how the game was, you accepted it. But that was the environment I grew up in. So it didn't seem strange to me, that was how football was played.
But for you though, am I right in saying you never had a booking in your career?
No, I never get booked, no.
Should you have? Just thinking that you probably would have had one in the modern day.
I should have got one, I think, against Stoke City one day when I lost my temper with somebody that was kicking lumps out of me. But that's about it. And, A lot of bookings are, like even in those days, the challenges were bad, some of them obviously, but that, as I say, that's how the game was played. A lot of bookings were for dissent, and arguing with the referee and linesman, I couldn't ever see the point in that, because once they made the decision, they weren't going to change it. And so that's probably one of the reasons as well, I never really get booked. Hey, listen, everybody gets booked in the modern game now, so as when you ask me the question, would I have been a better player? I think I would have been a better player if I wouldn't have got injured when I was 16. I had a bad injury, a bad thigh injury when I was 16 that kept me out of the game for a while. And it nearly finished my career. I mean, when I was 24, I was told I'd probably have to pack the game in. I had a bad thigh injury. I tore a muscle against Sheffield Wednesday reserves at Ellen Road. The club I made my debut. I was only 16. And I look back and, treatment injuries wasn't the same then. And this muscle kept on tearing, so it calcified, bone growing in the muscle. So they had to cut it out, and consequently it shortens the muscle. And it was my left leg. And I was predominantly left-footed. So I think I'd have been a lot better player than I was if I wouldn't have done that then.
That's something to imagine then, isn't it, if you're going to be an even better player? You mentioned your debut there against Sheffield Wednesday. What are your memories of playing in that match, in that arena, with, like you mentioned, playing in that era against difficult teams?
I was in the squad and I'd made a few trips, and it was New Year's Day. It's a big day for Scotsmen, as you know. And Don never told me I was playing till the Saturday. And he told me on the Saturday morning, so basically when he picked the team, well, he had picked the team, but he never told me I was playing, I didn't feel nervous or anything because I grew up training with the players, and the funny thing about that game is, although my mother and father weren't down, my brother Frank was just happened to be staying with me in my digs that weekend. So Frank seen my debut, and Frank was at the game. And that might have been an influence in Frank coming to Leeds United, because, like Frank, the same scout, John Barr, went to see my dad when Frank was playing with the Glasgow and Scottish schoolboys. Asked Frank to get down for a weekend, and Frank come down. And I wanted Frank to play with the Celtic, for my dad's sake, And Frank was a ball boy at Celtic Park, the old ball boys used to have, but Frank decided he signed to Leeds. So the debut was nice to have my brother here, who was obviously 7 years younger than me. But I remember the game, it picked huge crowd, local derby, fortunate enough to score. We win the game. The most important thing was winning the game. And and when you play your first game, it's always nice to play reasonably well, score a goal and win the game. So it was a nice start.
Well, you were a teenager, obviously.
Yeah.
I sort of touched on there in terms of the toughness of the time, playing against real characters in the game. People would get away with a foul. Was that a difficult introduction with that side of the game?
No, you've got to remember, I was growing up in training for I was 16. Like when I was 15, like when you first come down, you go on the ground staff, what they call the ground staff there, where you're doing all the odd jobs around the ground, and you train at lunchtime. But Don took me off the ground staff when I was 16. So I trained with all the pros till I was 16. And we used to play Scotland-England matches. Well, there was no game I played and get any harder than that. And eventually Don had to pack them in. Pack the games in.
Because it got too rough.
Oh yeah. It was like World War III, I mean, you could imagine it, Bobby Collins, Billy Bremner, Big Jack Norman, So, you grew up in that environment. How the game was, the game was still, great players played. I remember saying to Don, when I was younger, Don used to love talking about football, and that's what I liked as well. He always used to say to me, they say, well, could you play in this area, you can play in that area. He used to always say to me, Stanley Matthews and Tom Finney could have played in any area. And it's right, great players could play in any area, doesn't make any difference, It's the environment you grow up in, the conditions you're playing in. And that's another thing, you know, about my debut. You know, the reason I wasn't that nervous was because we training with the first team for a period of time, and I was, you know, this is after I was out of the game for a while. You know, like with this thigh injury, I knew how good they were. You know, and when people talk about games and individual games, yeah, it's great. You know, but for me the greatest thing was sitting next to the players I played with over the years, and just looking at them and sitting in the dressing room and think, there's no way we can get beat today. That's a great feeling to have.
Was that part of the psyche at the time for the club? I mean, those first few years you were there, you came so close to winning things.
Yeah.
I think you finished joint top of the league with Man United, lost on goal difference, semi-finals, finals, didn't actually achieve anything, but did you always know that you were going to win things?
Well, we always felt we would, you know, and it was, you know, it was a work in progress, you know, like, you've got to remember when, you know, the football club had never won a major trophy, you know, before Don came, you know, so they hadn't a great history of winning major trophies. And I think, you know, I never played in the 65 Cup final, I was only young, I went there, you know, I went to the Cup final, I watched the game, you know, and we weren't that far away from Liverpool, you know, and Liverpool were a good team then, you know, strong team, they were probably our biggest competitors. But I realised watching that game, you know, we'd eventually catch the teams up. You know, and Don tweaked a few things, you know, he brought younger players in, Peter was just starting to play, and Paul Madeley coming through the ranks. I mean, obviously, you know, you had the nucleus of the side where, you know, Bobby was still playing then, and Johnny Giles had came from Manchester United, and Billy and Norman, Big Jack, you know, all the older, you know, no, they weren't old, but, you know, they had that bit of experience. You know, and when I get into the side, you know, that you're playing with great players that knew what it took to win trophies then, you know. And that was a big help for me.
Were you a victim, the team itself, were they a victim of their own success at times? You know, because you got to finals and semi-finals of competitions and, you know, playing all those games at the end of a season, did it hamper you? Because some people would say you didn't win as much as maybe you should have.
I wish I'd probably have won more, you know. But we played against a lot of great teams as well. A lot of great teams about, you know, then. I mean, everywhere you went, it was, you know, I could name 4 or 5 players for every club. A really top drawer, you know. You know, so you know, you had Arsenal, a great team. Chelsea were a terrific team. They had a lot of young players as well. You know, you got your Liverpools and your Manchester Uniteds, you know. And Man City, this, you know, 60, 67, 68, they were a top side as well. So there was a lot of top sides about. I think you could say that maybe was getting to more or less the semi-finals or finals and always in contention, nearly every trophy we played for. It did take its toll physically. I mean, when we won played in the cup final and won the FA Cup final against the Arsenal, we had to leave and play. I lead the side on the Monday night. You know, that wouldn't happen nowadays, which was unfair. You know, because, you know, the team we played, Wolverhampton Wanderers, they beat us. If we had beaten them, we would have won the league. We would have done the double that year. But to play on a Monday night after winning the cup final, we couldn't even
celebrate.
Yeah, we couldn't even celebrate winning the cup final. We went straight from Wembley and travelled up to Wolverhampton right after the game. I don't think, you know, that would happen nowadays. So little things like that and circumstances like that didn't help. But, you know, it was always nice to be in contention. But you're probably right when you say we probably put ourselves in positions where we should have won more. Never happened. But it was still great to be playing at that level all the time, you know, and knowing, you know, you're as good as any team that we're playing.
1969, though, the first league title winning it at Anfield, record number of points.
Yeah.
How special a moment was that for the club and for you as well, personally?
It was special, you know, like for the football club. Actually, you know, looking back, you'd rather have won it at Ellen Road in front of your own fans, you know. It was great to go to a place like Anfield and win it, you know, actually win the championship there, you know, and Don told us to go to the Kop after we'd won it and he'd give us a round of applause and we were thinking, are you kidding us on here? But we did, and he gave us a great reception, started chanting champions, you know, and the Leeds fans had to wait till we played Forest a few days later to, you know, to actually welcome the team back to win the championship. But obviously, I think that the championship was the pinnacle then. You know, you're playing 40 odd games a season, you're playing against a lot of good sides, you know, with record number of points, lowest number of defeats at that particular time. So it was a great achievement for the club.
Can you believe it's 50 years?
Well, I know that now. I look in the mirror. Yeah, it seems a long time ago, but it's something you can look back and, you know, with pride, and obviously the players I played with, they'll something we'll never forget. And that's the thing about our group of players. You know, we see each other a lot. We're still close, you know. So it'll be nice to see them all, you know, when the centenary dinner happens, and that'll be great.
The year after that came what many regard as your best ever match, the match against Burnley. You know, you scored that 35-yard chip, and you know, then you went around half the Burnley team and scored that wonder goal, which I described earlier has been like a goal that Lionel Messi sort of would score nowadays. Yeah, no. Which would you think would? I asked you this off camera, but which is the better goal, do you think, in that match?
The goal that gave me the more pleasure was the chip, because I had to control the ball quickly, look up quickly, and you know, like make my mind up quick what I was going to do. And I just seen the goalkeeper's off his line a bit. So for me, the execution of that goal. See, the other goal that people talk about, I can understand why they talk about it.
I think that goal was, if you look at the state of the pitches,
yeah,
that makes it even more special.
Yeah, but from my point of view, and without sounding, you know, big-headed or blasé, you know, it was something I could do growing up. I could always get by people. I mean, my favourite player, I told you, was a chap called Willie Fermi. And you never seen anybody dribbling with the ball like Willie Fermi. Oh, he was amazing. Well, Messi, obviously. Messi's obviously in a different league. And it was something that I could do, you know. So it was nice to score the goal, you know, but the first goal gave me more satisfaction personally. But I can understand why other people look at it and they think the other goal was better.
Yeah, voted Leeds United's greatest ever goal as well. I'm guessing that gives you quite a lot of satisfaction as well to be held in that regard. How unlucky were this team, though? I know there's controversial circumstances, and I've talked about the team not maybe winning as much as they should, but how unlucky were you not to win a European Cup, to win that big one that, you know, that would have elevated you to absolute greatness?
I think the team should have deserved to beat Bayern Munich in '75 after Don had left, you know, in the European Cup final when Jimmy Armfield was manager. Semi-finals against Celtic. Celtic were a great team. We could probably have won the game at Ellen Road. Probably should have. Celtic beat us 1-0. And we went up to Hampden. Celtic Park was getting done up. It was 136,500 at the game. But I think you got to be honest and say Celtic were a better team that night. You know, so when you look at that's what I said to you earlier. You know, like people say we should have won more. Yeah, we could have won more, and we probably should have. Circumstances, but there was occasions we played against great sides. You know, and Celtic were a great team. Celtic should probably have won the European Cup that year. They never. They could be in the final with Feyenoord, but they'd won it already in '67. You know, so I wouldn't say we deserved to beat Celtic over the two games. The games were pretty even. They were great battles, you know. But over the two games, they were as good as us. Vice versa, you know. The game could have went anyway. So I think the side were very unlucky not to win the European Cup in '75. You know, because then we'd beat a lot of good teams in the way there. The Bayern Munich game was. I mean, I never started that game. And Jimmy put me on the bench.
How heartbreaking was that for you?
It was, but I can understand why he did it, because, you know, I was still having little bits of problems with my thigh. I hadn't played a lot of games in 73-74 season when they won the league again. You know, Don's last season at the football club. You know, that was round about the time when I was told I'd have to pack the game in. So I can understand that.
Like I mentioned in terms of the European Cup, with there seemed to be an emergence of English teams at that time who were going on to win it.
Yeah.
It seems, because Leeds in the 70s were talked about as one of the great teams. It just seems a bit of a shame that they weren't one of those teams that went on to win it. When you look at the other teams that went on to win, like the likes of Forest, the likes of Manchester United, the likes of Liverpool.
No, I think we were as good as any teams, you know. But they're again, when it's put in front of you, you've got to win it. I mean, that's how I look at the football, you know. You can look at circumstances and different things, you know, but you've got to give credit to other clubs. I think the side were good enough to win it. Unfortunately, it just never happened, you know.
You mentioned Jimmy Armfield, but the manager before that, in Brian Clough, when he took over from Don Revie.
Yeah.
What was that? What was the contrast like between the two at the time? I'm guessing he didn't really get to appreciate Brian in the short space he was at the club.
No, I mean, difficult circumstances, you know, like for Brian as well, you know. I mean, but it was probably for our football club, you know, the wrong choice at that particular time. I mean, it goes without saying there wasn't a lot of love lost between Don and Brian, you know.
Was that actually a thing at the time? Obviously, we saw in the film that it was a big thing from Brian's side more than Don's side, it seemed.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem for Brian when he came to Ellen Road, he had his assistant with him, you know. He stayed away, you know. Taylor, yeah. Peter Taylor didn't come with him, you know. But, I mean, you know, when you look back, I mean, obviously Brian Clough was one of the greatest managers this country's produced, the things he done. You know, won the European Cup twice with Forest, you know. It never happened for him at Leeds. But probably, and, you know, I think he said this and later in his life, that probably his fault in a way. I mean, I think he came into the club with the wrong attitude for the point of view how he was going to do things. I mean, what you've got to remember, the players that played had just won the league. You know, he wasn't coming into a club that were struggling, you know. And, you know, just how he did things, you know, told the players to throw the medals in the bin and all that.
Did that actually happen?
Oh, yeah, that happened, yeah. Oh, it did, yeah. I mean, you don't say that to league champions, you know. I think that Brian was always brash. He was brash with the wrong group of people. He wasn't taking over a club that hadn't done anything. He was taking over a club that were league champions. And more or less, you know, and I think it was all through the mutual dislike for each other. He was trying to make a point. I can understand why he was trying to make a point, but I think he'd done it in the wrong way. And I'll not change my opinion on that.
He said that he wanted to win the league better. Was that possible at the time, based on the performances that you put in the season before?
No. I mean, I think that was something he just says because, I mean, listen, I watched plenty of Forest games. They weren't all pure and nice football, you know. 2 centre-backs would have kicked anybody. You know, we worked with Kenny, you know, Kenny Burns, you know. You know, so, great players. John Robertson, one of the best players that have played the game in this country. A lot of great players. And Brian done very well with the group of players he had. But when he came to our club, it was you haven't done anything, you know, you've not done it right, you know. What does that mean? I mean, I think if you look back, you'd realise it was talking rubbish, you know. Whatever done in the game, you can't say that about a club that have just won the championship. And they won it with playing great football in a good style. When you actually think about it, we went some number of games that season without getting beat. It was only Stoke who beat them, you know, getting towards the latter end of the season, you know. But I don't think you could come into any football club. I mean, if Brian would come in and says, listen, great achievement last year, let's do it again this year. You know, let's go for the European Cup. And see, they come in and say you can throw your medals in the bin. It doesn't work, does it?
No. Not the best way to see it.
What I say is, you know, like, but Brian was a complex character anyway, you know, for the point of view of how he did things. I mean, my brother went to Forest. Frank won the European Cup with him, you know, for Leeds. Signed Frank for Leeds. Didn't seem to fancy Frank when he was here, but he took him to Forest and won the European Cup with him. And even Frank found it difficult to understand what made him the great manager he was, you know. But he was, there's no doubt about it.
Interesting character. A lot gets talked about Brian Clough as the character and that rivalry with Don Revie. But what was it that made Don so special at Leeds? Because obviously, again, like we said, contrast of characters. Why did he get it right for such a long period of time?
Don built the club, really, you know. Foundations, the club is, you know, like for the point of view. There's a lot of great players played in the past for Leeds United before Don came. You know, like John Charles and Big Jack Charlton was playing then. There's a lot of great players throughout the years, you know. But Don turned the club into a powerful football club. And he had an idea. He worked with a chairman called Harry Reynolds, and he decided they were going to try and sign, you know, like as many of the best schoolboy players as they could. You know, because they knew they hadn't the money to compete in the market with the so-called bigger clubs at the particular time. And he did that. So Don sort of built the club and was with the players. And the game's changed a lot. I mean, we spoke about, you know, earlier. The game's changed a lot for, you know, would our club have stayed the same nowadays? Would all the players stayed at the club for 10 years? Probably not. You know, with agents and moving on and different things, you know. It happens at all clubs, football clubs now. So Don, the club gave Don a free hand to build the club, you know, without interference. I mean, Don ran the football club, you know, just didn't run the team, Don.
He wouldn't have suited having a director of football.
Well, he just ran the club, you know. They didn't be able to tell Don what to do at the football club, you know. You know, he was a boss, and everybody knew that. He always tried to look after the families of the players. He always had a great spirit. It was great to come in training every day, you know. And Brian did little things, you know, like we used to be in training at 10:45, 10 o'clock, and we'd be running around the park, and Brian would come up at 11.
Oh, you are a bloody disgrace! Hey, Baz, for missing the target from there, you want bloody shooting!
Brian was just trying to make a point. He didn't respect Don and his team, and it never worked, you know. I mean, we had a terrible start to that season, you know, under Brian. That's why, you know, the club, you know, let Brian go. And Jimmy Armfield come in and took the same players to the European Cup final that year. I think that says everything, you know. So, and the team was starting to break up then. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons Don left the club to go to England. I don't think Don really wanted to break the team up, because it was closely knit and some of the players were getting a little bit older, you know, and he knew he would have to break it up. And I don't think that really appealed to him, you know.
What was it like in the following years? We talked about the European Cup final earlier, but the years after, you know, that success, the 76 to 82.
Slowly, but, you know, slowly the club went into a decline. To the point of view challenging for major honours. A few managers came, Jimmy Adamson came, you know. Jock Stein came for a short period of time. Same number of days as Brian Clough, people forget that. You know.
Obviously a great manager as well, you know.
Great manager, I mean, Jock would win his European Cups, but I think, you know, like, I mean, that particular time, I think the job Jock wanted was really to become full-time manager of Scotland. And Scotland were only offering a part-time, you know, post, which they did in those days. So I think Jock coming here just forced the Scottish Football Association's hand a bit, and hence Jock stayed 44 days. It's like the same number of days as Brian Clough. So, and then, you know, the team broke up, and a lot of terrific players came to the club, no doubt about that. You know, Tony Curry came to the club, smashing player, Tony, great player. Arthur Graham, terrific player. You know, we had a lot of terrific players come to the club. We had Trevor Cherry, who had joined with Don, but you had also other players that joined the club. But with the standard of the players that left,
had to replace that standard.
Well, that's right. So that, you know, then Alan took over, and you know, the club weren't of the same power, and unfortunately, Alan left the club, and I think Alan done a good job at the club, and I think he would have, been successful given the opportunity. Never happened. And so you moved on from then, and I became player manager.
What was that like for you? I was going to get onto that for the next question, but having the honour of managing a football club that you've been at throughout your playing career, and to be in charge of that, a club that Don has built, one of the biggest in England at the time. It was an
honour, but it was hard work because the club hadn't any money, and we had to balance the books. We couldn't really sign anybody. Had to signed a few players, but
the second division side, as we should say.
Second division side, but we signed a lot of players, only have decent careers, Big Andy Linnigan went to the Arsenal, and Ian Snodden went to Everton, but we had a lot of good young players come through the ranks. The club have always been strong in producing young players, still to this day. Even you get back, James Milner, Alan Lennon, just to name a few, in recent times are still playing the game at the highest level, and there's still a few more out there that started their careers at Leeds United. So the club could always produce players, and we had some good young players, but
guys like John Sheridan and people like that.
Scott Sellers, Tommy Wright, Dennis Irwin, who went on to Terry Phelan, no, we're not going to have great careers, Dennis Irwin's career, 9 league titles or something like that at Old Trafford. So these players all come through the ranks, and it was, but we just had that little bit of experience when I was managing then to take it to the next step. But the funny thing is, when I did get the sack, I felt we were just beginning to mature as a side, the players that I had. But that's football. I accepted it. Didn't necessarily agree with the decision, but accepted it in football. And then they got Howard in, Billy first, and Billy was unfortunate, Billy Bremner. Billy loved the club as much as anybody. And he just failed in the playoffs. And then Billy got let go and they got Howard in. And actually, to be fair, they found a little bit of money in. And Howard brought players in. Got Gordon in, a bit like Don we mentioned earlier, with Bobby Collins, Gordon comes into the football club, and then they gradually get one or two other players that come in. And Gary McAllister was the top player, the top player, So, and Howard got the club the success that they were craving. I look back in Howard's team, in 92, 93, and they were top side, really top side. People say Man United threw the league away that year. Teams don't throw the league away. It's a long season, you've got to play over the season, 10 times out of 10. The team that are the best over the seasons win the league. And Leeds United deserved to win the league that year because they were a top side. And then the club went into a bit of decline again. That's, Howard left the football club, and you get different people coming to the club, George Graham came in, and then obviously George left, and David took over. And I'd worked at the academy with Paul Hart. Howard, when Howard was manager, he asked me to come back and work with Paul Hart. Paul was the academy director, and I worked with Paul. And once again, we spoke about young players coming through the club. We had a group of young players that were better than any of the country.
That was again going to be my next question. The outstanding talent that you helped bring through at that time. What was that like for you, knowing that you had that crop and they were going to be potentially as successful as they were?
Well, you can never say they're going to take it to the next step, but a lot of them were strong-willed.
The likes of Harry Kewell, Alan Smith.
Yeah, Woodgate. Jonathan Woodgate played for England when he was 19. And went to Real Madrid. Harry was a terrific player. But we'd also experienced players around at that time as well. For the club, to bounce back and get into what we did in the Champions League, it was terrific. Great days, and David done a great job. And the thing about it is, when George was at the football club, Paul Hart left, and You know, I took the youth team for a little bit, then I took the reserve side, and then when, you know, but George used to take me with the first team with him and David, so you got to see all these young players coming through and playing the game at the highest level, and you thought, yeah, they're all going to go on and become international players. I mean, we speak about the young players, but the signings, you know, David made, you know, you get Mark Viduka there, and Viduka could have played in any team in the world, you know, and when he was on song, he was unplayable, you know. I mean, I think he showed that the game he played against Liverpool when he scored 4 at Ellen Road, you know, against Liverpool, they won the game. So there's a lot of smashing players. Oliver Vicour was a smashing player. You know, in the club at that particular time, though, spent too much money.
For you, being involved in that again, if that team hadn't have been broken up, and maybe I mentioned some of the signings, the club spent a lot of money during that time, obviously. Did they have to spend that money?
They never had. No, I didn't think they did.
Because it obviously.
I mean, funny enough, at one particular time, we had Mark Viduka, Alan Smith, Robbie Keane, Robbie Fowler, Darren Huckabee, Harry Kewell, all want to play up front. Now, all Harry played outside left. Harry always liked to play up front. So, I mean, even you're talking about 6-7 players there. You look at the wage bill for these 6 or 7 players, and the club just spent too much money. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you know, David bore the brunt for that. You know, like, and then the club went into decline again. We're having to sell players, which was disappointing. If the players were stuck together.
If you looked at that team, though, the team that did qualify for the Champions League, the club hadn't really spent the money at that point. They spent the money more in the when they got into the Champions League. You mentioned they bought all the strikers, for example, the likes of Robbie Keane,
you know, like,
and Ferdinand, of course.
Rio Ferdinand, and then you end up, you have to sell everybody. You know, you sell Viduka, you sell Ferdinand, you sell Woodgate, you sell Kewell, you sell Alan Smith, you sell Oliver Vicour. You know, you're selling the whole team, basically. Then it became difficult for the people that followed. You know, it became difficult for David when he started selling players. And Peter came in, Peter Reid. Very difficult for Peter, and I think Peter's considered decline in the club. I don't think.
Obviously Terry Venables as well.
Terry came in, but Terry was only in for a short period of time as well. You forget that, you know, Terry came in, and you know, Terry came in with a great reputation. But when a club starts to get into decline, it's very, very hard to rectify. It doesn't make a difference who you are, you know. And then, you know, the biggest disappointment for me in my history at Leeds United is when I went back as caretaker and we got relegated to the Premier League. But you could see it happening, you know. I mean, the players were going 1-1, you know. The players were coming to me, and the club tried to sell me last night, and they're asking, and even at that particular time, even though we were, you know, in a big league, the club were asking the players to take a wage cut. The regime changed, the atmosphere at the club changed completely. It wasn't a good atmosphere at the end, I've got to say that. You know, and it's bounced back again, you know.
Was that the most difficult period of your professional career when you took over as caretaker manager?
It was a period I never enjoyed, you know, like, as much as I should have done, you know. Even the first time I was manager, even though I got sacked then, I still enjoyed that, you know. Then when I come back, you know, in a way I regret taking the caretaker's manager's job on, but, you know, they asked me to do it, you know, and I just went back and I did it, so it was difficult, you know. But the thing about it is that you make these decisions, and you know, I'd been at the club for a long time, and so it was disappointing. You know, I still, what I will say is, I still feel disappointed with myself. I couldn't manage to turn it around and keep the club up, you know. But that was how it was.
Obviously, you're in a difficult situation. We still had 1 or 2 results in that run, didn't you? I remember you drew at Old Trafford, and Scott Carson made his debut, and you beat Charlton away.
Results, but you know, at the end of the day, you go down because you're not good enough. You know, that's it. It's the same as like winning the league championship. You know, so that was disappointing. But you know, overall, you know, I look at my career at Leeds, and you know, I'm very fortunate. You know, a youth team player, reserve team player, first team player, youth team coach, reserve team coach, first team coach and manager.
Good job.
Yeah.
And of course,
an assistant manager as well.
And of course, you went on after the caretaker role. You went on to work for Radio Leeds to cover the club. And how much did you enjoy transitioning into that role? Obviously, a difficult time for the club as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoy football in general. Enjoyed working at Radio Leeds. It's a good time, and then it changed again. And I went to work for Ken, in his radio station, and then LUTV, and I'm still doing a little bit for LUTV. I'm not doing the commentaries now, but I'm working for LUTV, and the present owner, he wanted, me to become an ambassador for the club. So that's what I do now. I'm still go to I go to every game basically, which I love, and hopefully, this will be the season the club get back into the big time. Because as every year passes, when you're in the Championship, the tougher it gets. Because there's all these teams come down for the Premier League and they all come down with a war chest, So that is why, it is important, especially how the game is going now, The Premier League clubs, as you know, the Premier League's the most powerful league in the world. Probably one of the most powerful businesses in the world, the Premier League. So it is important you get back there quickly and then compete with the best again, and not be easy, but they've got the opportunity.
Do you feel now this is different? We've seen Leeds for a number of years now trying to get back into the Premier League. Do you have a feeling that this is destined to go back into the Premier League under the current ownership, under the current management, with the current players?
I hope so. The owners invested a bit of money in the manager, the players, so you hope he gets his just reward. But, when I looked at last season, I thought it was going to happen last season. So there's no guarantees, But, the coaches come in, they play a great brand of football, At the end of the season, we let it slip. You just hope it doesn't happen this season again, I've got a feeling that it could be a year, but there's always a little bit of caution in the back of the mind,
Especially after last season.
Yeah, especially after last season. Towards the end of the season, we were 10 to 1 on to go as champions, Never mind get promotion, it never happened. So, I hope it happens for the owner, the new manager, coach, the players, and the supporters especially, because they've had to suffer, and the support's vast, as you know. There's a vast support. We take travelling support to games in the Championship that Premier League clubs would be proud of, and they're due a turn, the supporters,
If we look back at your career as a whole, what would you say was the best memory of your Leeds United career? What would you say is the one that stands out for you?
I always think for you, there's a few things. You speak about the goals. What goal was my favourite? I look back. I'm not talking about quality of goal, but the favourite goal was probably the goal I scored in my debut, because that's something you never forget. But looking back, you'd probably have to say winning the league championship, and winning at Anfield. We spoke about it. I think it would have been nice to win at Ellen Road in front of your own fans. But if you're going to win it anywhere, win it at one of the top clubs, and Liverpool were a top club then. So there's a one-off, probably that. But in years gone by, the one biggest game in the country was the cup final. For the publicity it got, people watched it all over the world. And to win the Centenary Cup final against Arsenal was a big one as well. But knowing how difficult it is to win the league championship, I'd have to say winning the league championship, But it's also nice, when the club first won the League Cup, because that was a major trophy then. And that was also against the Arsenal. And Terry Cooper scored, So you look back, there's a lot of fine memories, a lot of good memories, but probably winning the league championship, but it's always, you know, as I said earlier, you know, just having the opportunity to play with great players. I mean, you know, when we had the squad, we probably played with 14, 15 players. They were all full international players, you know. I mean, every one of them, all top class players. So that was a privilege, you know, and a pleasure, you know, and to still be involved with a club, I consider myself very lucky. You know, when I joined the club when I was 15, when I first got on the train to come down when I was 14, I never envisaged myself signing for the club. Then when I joined when I was 15, you never thought it would turn out as good as it did. But it has, and I'm very lucky.
Well, it's been my privilege and my pleasure to speak to you today, Eddie. Thank you very much for your time, and good luck with whatever's next in your career.
Oh, next in my career, it'll just be probably an ambassador for the club, you know. But I mean, I look back and, you know, like when I look at things, you know, like I've won the major trophies, we won European trophies, although it was in the European Cup. You've won the first cup now, which is like Europa League now, you know. I've been fortunate to get an MBE for the Queen. I'm in the Hall of Fame in Scotland, the Hall of Fame in England. So that's the, looking back at my career, you know, when I was 15, you never think that's going to happen. But, as I say, I'm very lucky. But that all comes around with playing for a great manager and playing with great players.
Like I said, it's been a pleasure.
Cheers,
Thanks
sir.
for your time.
Thank you very much.